we have to sing in front of others, most of us experience some level of stage fright, stage nerves, performance anxiety. Those nerves that panic and dread are really common responses to stressful situations, such as performing in front of others. That panic is a high energy psychological state, but it's a negative one. The rapid breathing, heart palpitations, sweaty palms, shaking, butterflies in the stomach, all cause us to perform poorly. We experience impaired fine motor coordination and sense of timing, and the inability to really focus on the task at hand. Now, if we think about athletes, there's a certain level of energy that's considered optimal, that helps them perform at their peaks. But for most of us, there's a huge disparity between that optimal level of energy, that level of energy that helps us perform at our peaks, and what we're actually experiencing before we set foot on stage and when we're actually standing in front of the audience. And I am someone who has experienced a tremendous amount of anxiety in many different forms throughout my life. Situations that you would not expect would send me into an utter state of panic will. And so I've had to devise strategies to help me cope with my anxiety, and I'm going to share some of those strategies with you today. I have a lot of them, but I'm going to share with you my top strategies, and hopefully you'll benefit from them and find a few of them that help you when it comes to your own stage fright, stage nerves, performance anxiety. There are two really common and major reasons why we tend to experience a lot of anxiety surrounding performances. The first is that we don't feel completely prepared, and I'm going to expound upon that in a moment. And the second reason is we don't know what to expect. So what I do is I try to address both of those main reasons, and I have a lot of practical strategies for doing this. So first of all, we fully prepare for the performance, and we do this in a number of ways. First, we want to practice a lot. We want to make sure that we know our songs inside out, we know the arrangements, we know the melodies, and we're able to sing those songs. You also want to make sure that you're planning your set list wisely. You want to make sure that you're leading with a song that you're really confident singing. You don't want to set foot on stage and start with a song that causes you some worry, anxiety about whether or not you're going to be able to pull that song off. And this may require us to really examine the songs that we're singing and take a really hard look at our set list and consider possibly removing songs from that set list that might cause us anxiety. If we're worried about the high note, if we're worried about that belted note at the end, if we're worried about that low note, we either need to make adjustments to the key or consider putting that song on the back burner for a little while and maybe replacing it with a song that we're a little bit more confident with. Confidence is key. If we're going into a performance worried about whether or not we're going to be able to execute a song vocally, then that's going to add to our anxiety and our nervousness. That's the last thing that we want in our minds when we're setting foot on stage or getting ready to set foot on stage. Now, other areas of preparation include planning transitions between songs. If you're working with a band, making sure that your band knows what song is coming next in the set list. We want to make sure that those transitions are really clean and smooth and fluid, and we want to also plan when we're going to address the audience. We're not always going to flow from one song to the next, and then when it comes time to addressing the audience, I find that I don't speak really well extemporaneously. So I find that if I have a little bit of a plan in mind, I do much better. If I have an idea of what I want to say to the audience, then that makes me feel a lot better about those moments. I don't feel so awkward standing there not knowing what to say while the band is making the changes. I would also encourage you to get some performance coaching. Now, what I'm talking about here is not vocal coaching. I'm talking about performance coaching. It's when you have somebody like Tom Jackson, who has his boot camps and his onstage success program, who helps you organize your set, helps you find ways to create experiences and moments with your audiences, who can teach you things like using your mic stand and being able to direct the audience's attention from one band member to the next. Another thing that you want to do in preparation for your performance is plan your wardrobe wisely. If you can't walk in heels, then perhaps you shouldn't wear them. If you're using a wind machine, maybe you shouldn't wear a short, flowy A-line skirt. If you like to get down really low with your audience and really connect with them, really up close and personal, then perhaps your skinny jeans shouldn't be too skinny, if you know what I mean. Another aspect of preparation for me is doing my research. I like to know a little bit about the venue that I'm going to be singing at. How many seats does it have? How big is this? What does it look like? If I can't actually physically go and visit that venue ahead of time, I like to get online and I like to go to the website and look at pictures and get a feel for the layout of the place and what the stage looks like. And that way, when I actually arrive at the venue for the first time, I feel like I've already kind of been there. I know what to expect. So before you get to that day though, got a couple more aspects of preparation. The first is we want to practice in front of others. We want to invite friends or family, people who are going to support and encourage us, to sit down in our living rooms and we're going to give them a performance. We don't want to treat that performance as some grand reveal, as some big secret. That just puts way too much pressure on us. So perform in front of your family, give them a little concert, a little performance, and that way you've got that first performance under your belt. And then a couple nights before the performance, get some rest. Now I always say 2 nights because I find that the night before the performance, a lot of singers have so much nervousness and anxiety and they can't turn their brains off. And they're so nervous and they're just thinking about everything that can go wrong that they can't really get a good night's sleep. So we back it up another night and we try to make sure that we get some really restful sleep 2 nights before the performance. And what I find and what many other individuals find is that we can cope much better with a stressful situation, with that anxiety, that nervousness, when we're well rested. So now on the day of the gig, you want to arrive early. Give yourself plenty of time to get there so that you're not feeling stressed out or worried about the potential for being late. I like to be able to get a feel again for the place, find out where the restrooms are, the change rooms are, how do we get from the changing rooms up to the stage. These are little things, but for me, for somebody who likes to have all of my ducks in a row, I find that just knowing that alleviates some of that anxiety. I like to get there early enough to be able to get a good sound check because there's nothing so unnerving as not being able to have a good sound check and feeling really nervous about whether or not there's going to be some sort of technical problem. I've been to some performances where there have been no sound checks. It's not ideal, but it does happen. But if there is an opportunity for a sound check, take it. That gives you an opportunity to stand on the stage, to look out, get a feel for the layout of the stage, the size of the stage, and to just sort of shake off some of those initial nerves. And it also gives you some contact and builds a relationship with the person who's going to be running the sound system if that person's not with you in your group. And so that gives you a chance to communicate to that sound person what it is that you want, and it gives you a chance to run through your songs. And then before the performance, now you want to warm up. And I would encourage you to actually warm up with others around you. A lot of us like to kind of do this in private because our warm-ups don't always sound fantastic. But if we get used to vocalizing in front of others, even if we're kind of making strange sounds that don't really sound like pretty singing, then that kind of starts to make singing seem less exceptional in terms of how we vocalize and use our voices. And it just starts to become something that we do. And that again starts to put our relationship with our voices in a little bit of a different light. It's not always about perfection. It's just about using your voice use. It kind of makes it a little bit sterile sounding, but that's kind of the point that we need to get to, where we're not always thinking that every time we open our mouths to sing anything, it somehow has to be perfect. It has to be performance level. Now, one thing that you don't want to do before a performance, and some will disagree with me, is consume alcohol or drugs in order to dull the anxiety. Those artificial relaxants may help you shed some of your inhibitions, but they can also affect your timing. They can affect your ability to remember things like the lyrics, and they can cause you to kind of stumble around on stage a little bit. So you want to make sure that your performance isn't dulled by artificial relaxants such as drugs and alcohol. Now, right before I set foot on stage, I like to take a moment to myself. I go off and find some quiet little corner somewhere where I can be alone for a couple minutes. And while I'm alone, I consciously convert that negative, panic-driven energy into an energy level that's far more optimal, that helps me perform at my peak. And I do this in a few ways. I reset my breathing. I take a few minutes to just breathe and calm my breathing, calm my nerves. And while I'm doing this, I'm resetting my mental state. I'm thinking about why I am doing this to begin with. Why am I torturing myself by going up on that stage? Well, I have a mission. I have a message to share. This is for a good cause. I love this. I have an audience out there that's waiting for me, that's very supportive and loving, that wants to hear my music. I get to share my music with them. Whatever that reason might be, I go to that place. I think about the reasons why I am doing this to begin with. It is not to torture myself. It's to share whatever it is that I want to share with whoever's out there to listen. And I also take that time to mentally prepare myself in other ways. I mentally rehearse the performance and kind of that feeling of getting out there on stage. And while I'm taking that quiet moment, I also remind myself that I am well prepared for this performance. I've got this in the bag. I've practiced thoroughly. I've planned my set list appropriately. I've practiced in front of friends or family, whatever it might be. I've got this. And all I need to do when I set foot on stage is just perform like I practiced it. And trust that my preparation is going to be more than adequate. I like to and need to encourage myself. And I like to purge my mind of the negativity, all the negative thoughts, the worry about what could possibly go wrong, the self-doubt, all of it. A little while back, there was a study conducted on the benefits of mental purging. A class of university students heading into an exam was divided into two groups. The first group was encouraged to mentally purge, to physically write down everything that they were thinking, positive, negative, no matter how stream of consciousness, everything they thought could possibly go wrong. Didn't matter what it was. Whatever was on their mind, they wrote it down. And the second group didn't do any of the same kind of mental purging. And what was found was that the group that had done this mental preparation and this mental purging actually fared significantly better on its test scores. There's something to be said about laying it all out there and really examining our fears and our negative thought patterns. And sometimes what happens is when we see all of those negative thoughts and worries and concerns about everything that can go wrong, it helps us to put things in perspective, and we come to realize just sometimes how irrational our fears and our thoughts are. And the last thing that you want to do before you actually set foot on stage is mentally prepare yourself for the possibility of things going wrong. If something's going to go wrong, it will. It happens even to the most seasoned performer. And so mentally prepare yourself for that. One of the ways in which I mentally prepare myself is I imagine myself tripping on a cable, whatever it might be. I imagine that worst case scenario. And then I rehearse, even if just mentally, I rehearse my reaction or my response to that thing going wrong. And when I do that, it helps me now feel a little bit more prepared again. Now I know that if that happens, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to be okay. So now we set foot on stage, and there are a few little things that I like to do. The first is that I don't take myself too seriously. You want to make sure that you get up there and you enjoy the performance. This is a once-in-a-lifetime experience because you will never again be performing for this exact same demographic, this exact same group of listeners. It's always going to be a little bit different every time you perform. So soak it all in. Enjoy the moment. This is what you've spent all this time preparing for. You want to get up there and have a really good time. And the audience wants to see you have a good time because it wants to have a good time. And if it sees that you're uncomfortable, if it sees that you're really nervous and having a hard time, it makes them feel a little bit uncomfortable. So have a party. Think of it. Imagine yourself as a host and you're hosting a party and these are your friends. The audience is not out to get you. It's not out to see you fall flat on your face or to fail. It's actually there to support you. It has paid tickets to see your show. It has wrestled traffic and parking lots to be there. The audience is invested in this show, sometimes more than we imagine. It's not just the money. The audience is coming there to see a show, to be entertained, and to feel as though it's being invited in. And so we need to make sure that as good hosts of this party, we're making that audience feel at home and feel comfortable and has a really good time. And we can't do that if we're taking ourselves too seriously or if we're looking at the audience in a negative light. We need to like and befriend the audience. The audience just wants an experience, and sometimes it wants to feel like it's part of the band, even if only vicariously. And the next thing that we need to do, and I'm terribly guilty of doing this myself, is we need to resist the urge to analyze our singing in real time. We don't want to be distracted by thinking about, oh no, that note's coming up, or oh, I hit a bad note, oh, that note was a little shaky. We don't want to be analyzing our singing in real time. That's going to be a distraction for us. It's going to prevent us from really being able to connect with the music and connect with the audience. And the audience is going to see that, and it's going to not feel invited in. It's going to feel like you're up there doing your own thing and not really wanting to connect. It's going to make you a bad host. And if you hit a bad note, don't even think about it. Just keep singing. Half the time, the audience doesn't even notice. And if you forget the lyrics, well, that can happen to the best of us. And just laugh it off. If you're comfortable doing so, crack a little joke. Sometimes being really lighthearted about it and just not taking yourself too seriously can really endear you to the audience. Like you just sat in the back, was over for you. No shit, I did that yesterday. Everyone you know, no, that's not it. No, help me. Where is it? And don't forget that if you're new at this, the audience is generally pretty forgiving. If you're in a studio recital and you're young and you haven't done a lot of singing before, the people in the audience are usually friends and family members, and they understand that you're still learning and you're still gaining experience, and they're going to be so understanding and so forgiving, and they're going to think you're just so brave for getting up there, so courageous for getting up on stage. I really hope that this video was helpful and gives you some new strategies that you can use when you're preparing for a performance and when you're actually up on stage. Please let me know what you think of them in the comment section below. Also, feel free to share your own strategies with us so that we can all benefit from your own experiences as well. And in the meantime, if you haven't already done so, please consider clicking the thumbs up button to let me know that you appreciated this content, and also consider subscribing to this channel so that you'll be notified the next time I post a video. Thanks for watching.